So that quote for $164,000 turned into about $4,500. So the building that I have in Michigan, Canton Manor, you know that I'm switching property management.
Mm-hmm. This week, right?
Well, I gave notice like Friday, I want to say. So one of the, well, there's multiple reasons why I feel the need to switch property management, and this might be something that people might be able to pull from. We had a situation where the building, it's a 6-story, Connor, put up a picture of the property. It's a 6-story mid-rise building. It's got elevators, really nice building, Canton, Michigan. Amazing location. And somebody came in. Well, we were getting water penetration in the property, all right? In like some of the units, not all of them, about 12 units I think it was. We were getting water penetration, and we had a contractor come in and say, hey, listen, I mean, you know, we have a situation where we feel it's a tuck pointing on the exterior perimeter of the property or the exterior facade or whatever. And we need to repoint the entire building is what they came back with. It was like a $164,000 quote. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, whoa, like this is fucking nuts, number one. So obviously, given that kind of dollar value or quote, I wanted to go there and see for myself before I fork out the money and say, hey, listen, like this has to be done. We have to pay for it because we're going to have major issues if we don't take care of this. So I went there with John, and then I went there with the property inspector that I use locally here as well. And literally within 5 to 10 minutes, we found out that it wasn't a tuck pointing issue. The issue was the bead of caulking on top of the I can't remember exactly what they're called. They're called they call them it's something like a magic pack. What you have it's very common to see them in hotels, right? At the bottom, usually at the bottom of like the hotel window, or doesn't necessarily have to be a hotel window, but usually at the bottom, it's like, it's not a window AC or whatever. It has a sleeve. They're usually kind of longer, shorter. They're wide and short, but very similar, I guess, to, you know, window AC with a sleeve, just bigger, more efficient. So these systems run gas as well as electricity for AC. And so gas and heat. The bead of caulking that's on top of the exterior sleeve that these things go in pulled back from the property, or just over time, you know, heat, whatever, expansion, you know, exposed to the elements. It pulled back from the property on the brick just enough for water to start getting in. And when you have a driving rain, it was coming into the buildings, and the units above, it was going down the wall, inside of the wall, on like behind. I believe it would have to be probably the drywall would probably be strapped to the block or whatever. It's a block building, and it's concrete, so it would probably have to be. I think it might be, or is it plaster? I don't remember exactly. It was built in 1997, so I can't imagine it being plaster. But I don't exactly remember what they used for the interiors of the wall, like the walls inside of the units. But nonetheless, you get water coming down, causing, you know, water penetration in the units. Well, they thought it was tuck point. It wasn't tuck point. It was a bead of caulking, like I mentioned, on the sleeve for the AC units. So that quote for $164,000 turned into about $4,500, right, to fix the bead of caulking, which I'm still kind of shocked at the amount. But, you know, they got to get a crane, and somebody's got to go up there, right, which is probably, you know, going up that high is probably pretty expensive. So, nonetheless,
yeah, most of the cost is probably just in getting that fucking machine there.
Exactly. So nonetheless, massive savings. Okay, and I feel that the management company should have vetted that properly. Because, you know, their argument was, well, we're not contractors. We rely on third party to, you know, vet maintenance and, you know, concerns and issues and stuff like that. And I'm like, listen, I'm not a contractor either. You know, you guys deal with, you know, like low rise, mid rise, high rise from your management firm. There's a big management firm in Michigan. You should have caught this and vetted it yourself before simply sending me the quote saying, hey, this needs to get done. Right. So And I apply this situation across the board with all properties for Coachwood. You know, if there's a big ticket item, like I'm going there, right? Because I'm not going to fork over a bunch of money that if, you know, I bring my own property inspector or my own maintenance guy and we come up with a better solution to get that price down and fix the problem, you better believe I'm heading over there. So nonetheless, that was an issue. A second major issue that I ended up finding out a little bit down the road, which, you know, I should have asked more questions, but I didn't. Again, large building, 56 units. It's right on the cusp. That size building is right on the cusp of having in-house leasing, where there's someone in the office, you know, part-time or full-time or whatever, acting as a leasing agent in exchange for rent for their unit, for example. Well, a month or so ago, you know, talking to agents in the area, especially, and the reason why I came to this conclusion was one of the agents that I bought the building from initially reached back out to me saying, hey, I've got a guy that wants to 1031 exchange into a larger multifamily property. He really likes your building. How do you feel about making an extra $1 on your building, and we'll have a nice, you know, exchange of property, and you know, you'll make $1 on your investment, which, you know, hindsight, I might have, you know, it was like not that long into ownership of this property, and he was literally going to cut me a check for an extra $1 million of what I paid for that property. And I was like, you know what? I feel like this property's got a lot of legs. I want to ride this out, you know? So, anyways, upon doing a little bit of due diligence and talking with him, you know, he was also under the impression that our releasing rate was very low. So this is a senior property. It's 55 plus is the age requirement, or it's not restricted. There's no permit or not permit bylaw on the property that's saying you can't rent to people younger than 55 or plus, but that's how the property's run, and it's set up that way, and, you know, and everything. There's, you know, alarm pull cords in the you know, bathroom and the bedrooms in case of, you know, for safety or whatever, in case somebody falls or whatever. You can roll a wheelchair into the shower. Like the shower floor is ground level. There's no lip or anything like that. So it's very advantageous for, you know, seniors or people that are, you know, just physically enabled, right? So he brought up the fact that the rent was really low on the property. So, and I agreed, right? We were only renting, you know, I think our releasing rate is like $750 a month. And he's like, man, if you clean these units up like just a little bit, you can push like 900. So I'm like, fuck, man, why am I being told that that's just way out of line with the market? Like, why am I being told that? Well, it turns out, and then I go to the property manager and I ask, like, well, who's doing the, you know, I'd like another rent assessment to be done, right? And he's like, okay, I'll do one, right? Well, I get the rent assessment done. He's like, yeah, we're right in line, you know, this and that. So then I'm like, well, who does the rental assessment? Well, it turns out it's a leasing agent who also lives in the building, who also has, you know, friends in the building, who actually pays rent because it's not 100% subsidized by her, you know, tasks that she does in the building. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, holy fuck, is that a conflict of interest? Like, it's a wild conflict of interest. So, you know, I gave notice that I'm getting a new management and there's another host of issues along with that, but these are two big ones that I was like, fuck, man, this is just even dumber shit, right? Like, I'll give another one. I'll give a third reason that is a little bit kind of, when I went to go inspect for these units, another thing that was brought to light that I happen to think was odd. And why wasn't it taken care of in a proactive effort? So we have issues with our garbage chute. We have a garbage chute that goes right down into like a garbage room, right? So you can imagine people are throwing fucking dumbass shit, pizza boxes, or they'll throw stuff that shouldn't go in a fucking garbage chute, okay? And then there's like only Herbie Kirby's that are taking garbage, like even probably less than the largest Herbie Kirby, like the smaller version. So they've got these Herbie Kirby's that Buddy rolls out, and then he has to hand bomb into a dumpster. Okay, so I go, and I never seen this before. You hire third party management. You think, okay, well, anything that's logical that's producing a pain point in a property should simply be taken care of. Like, you shouldn't have to.
Mm-hmm. You can go to you.
Yeah. Right. So, or at least bring it up to me and say, hey, we got to solve this problem. It's a dumb problem, but it's a problem that needs to be solved nonetheless. So we have a situation where, number one, people are throwing things down the garbage chute that they shouldn't be. It's clogging the garbage chute. And then in the event garbage makes it down the garbage chute, it piles up so fast because it's only a standard garbage can that it fills into. And then you have to roll that out, put another one in, or roll that one out, put it in the dumpster, that it backs up the rest of the chute, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, number one, that's a fucking problem. Okay. Number two, we need to figure out a situation where we can get, maybe bigger garbage cans in there if we're going to keep the garbage chute situation going. Okay. But number three, what really should happen is we have garbage valet, where maybe we started out at like $10 extra a month. And if you don't want garbage valet, where you literally, we could get like, borderline, I've seen this on the property in Lake Cecile that we had under contract. Outside of their unit, there were these little bins that you put your garbage in, and then someone comes and you put it out, like just like once a week or whatever, or maybe like you put it out once a day. Someone comes around and collects it and puts it down the chute, unlocks the chute. We're gonna lock it, and that guy puts it down the chute. Where if there's something that can't fit in the fucking chute, he doesn't actually put it down the chute, right? Or we take the garbage out, bring it downstairs, one floor, but like something. And if you don't want to pay for it, you take your garbage out. And that's what the real answer should be, is we have garbage valet, maybe even $20 a month, where if you have garbage, we figure out some sort of situation where it's left outside of your door or something like that. We don't want to encourage like filth, right? And then like stains all over the carpet if the garbage is, we don't want to do that kind of situation. So we really I want to make sure that the new management kind of treads lightly with this situation. But why was that even happening, right? That's such a simple fucking fix. Lock the fucking chute and tell everybody, if you want to pay, if you want to have someone take care of your garbage, or you want to have access to a chute, fine. It's an extra $20 a month, or something along those lines, where somebody will come up, take care of your garbage for you. And if you don't want to pay an extra X amount of dollars a month, then you go down into the fucking dumpster and you take care of the garbage yourself. That's it. But what are we still doing 2 years later? The fucking shit's clogging up. The chute's clogging up. We're still dealing with, one, two, three Herbie Kirby's that, get blocked up the whole time. And then we're still ham bombing that shit into the fucking garbage dumpster. It's just like, be proactive. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? So anyways, those are the three kind of things that were so blatantly obvious that should be taken care of, that simply weren't, or addressed in the right way, or to be proactive about, but weren't. So anyways, I gave notice on, I want to say Friday or so. And instead of, I'm under contract for, I have to give them a 60-day notice to switch out. And I was like, okay, well, I wasn't going to fire back and be all, like asshole-ish. So the vice president of, whatever management or whatever ends up writing me back, and he's like, hey, we're going to, because of all the resources allocated to this property, we have to stay firm with the 60-day notice. So I'm like, okay, well, that's bullshit, because first of all, you're in breach of the contract, and like the contract mentions that you have a responsibility to me and a fiduciary responsibility to maintain the property as as best as you see fit, or don't quote me, but something along those lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not properly vetting something where you could have arguably cost me an extra $160,000 when that wasn't even the issue,
Mm-hmm.
is a major breach of your contract. Okay, and it basically states that you're unfit to manage the property, right? Anyways, we had a conversation, and I said, listen, I'm not trying to blow this out of proportion. It might be simply time to, switch gears, bring in another management, and I'd rather you not hold me to the 60-day contract because I want this to be a good, split for both of us, basically. And lo and behold, he comes back and he's like, yeah, we can do it up to March 31st. We keep the contract, and in the meantime, we'll be required to. It'll probably take that amount of time for a simple change in management, anyways, to get everybody up to speed. So they're going to be collecting rent throughout the entire month, anyways, probably to get everybody up and. It's an older demographic, so it's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I do want to kind of go back to them and say, listen, just for sake of not necessarily being held to the contract, I almost want to say, listen, you're not going to hold me to the contract. If you want to, there's going to be a shitstorm I'm going to rain upon you. But for what? They charged me $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it might be where it's better just, okay, fair enough. We're already, February 21st? So here's another $1,500. Just make sure that the transition is smooth,
mm-hmm.
and that's it. So I think that keeping your third-party management accountable is what people should gather from this, I guess, episode, if you will, because simply because you're hiring a third-party management company doesn't necessarily mean that they, are really on the ball. You really have to make sure that you're checking in, that you're even present. I've noticed that when you start dropping by these buildings and you start looking what's going on, poking around, and you start seeing shit that you don't like, it could be it could be used as ammunition in the event that you're actually held to a contract that you're getting unsavory results from.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to go back on them and either number one, switch gears with another management company, or number two, say, look, here's all the pictures I see. This should be a fucking no-brainer to take care of and clean up. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? Right? Basically. So that was actually a pretty... So those two things, the first two things about the $160,000 tuck pointing quote, as well as the major conflict of interest on rent surveys, is something that should not be tolerated whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Never accept conflicts of interest, and never accept a massive quote like that. Even if they're small, I would still question things. And even prior to all of this, another thing too was I was paying somebody to unclog people's drains. And I didn't know. And I snipped that right in the butt early on, because I'm like, why the fuck am I paying for somebody that's fucking throwing too much toilet paper down the toilet and they're clogging their own fucking toilet? So then we started billing back the tenants and this and that. So these are really important things that I think people need to really pay attention to, especially when they start scaling into different size properties, because you can really get fucked if you're not on your ball.